presents Keeping the Spirits Alive. This is a show that represents a fresh perspective into the world of paranormal investigating and related topics, and how history plays an important role in keeping the spirits alive. This is your co-host, Chip Reichenthal, and while we're preserving history one location at a time, I'm proud to introduce our host, founder of the renowned paranormal investigative team, Glory Haunt Hounds, Mr. John Tobin.
Good evening. Happy Monday, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you to John Tobin's Keeping the Spirits Alive. This is the voice of co-host Chip Reichenthal, as we've kind of mixed the order a little bit thanks to a friendly wager we had. And you would think that I won this wager, but that's not the case. John is a Philadelphia Eagles fan, and I am a diehard New York Giant fan. And so we made a little wager depending on how the outcome of the game was, and, well, the Giants did not win. So I'm introducing the show, but it's really John's show, and John is going to do the opening segment we would normally call Chipisms, which tonight is a Johnism. Before we get that, though, very excited to have with us tonight Keith Johnson. He's a demonologist from N.E.A.R. We're going to get to him and many of these exciting questions that we have for him in a moment. But first, I am so proud to introduce, in a hosting capacity, our special opening segment, Johnism, from Mr. John Tobin. John?
I am so excited to bring you John-isms this week on behalf of my Philadelphia Eagles.
Who won?
Which are better to be lucky than good, I must say, and agree with Craig Eugene on that sentiment.
Craig Eugene's usually right.
But here we go, and I have not read this John-ism yet, as it was still written by my co-host here, Chip,
That's
but
right.
it's written with me in mind. So
Yes.
without further ado, because we have Mr. Johnson waiting, I will get on with the John-ism. So today's opening segment is a John-ism rather than a Chip-ism, segment normally appearing. The result of a friendly wager on last night's football game as my Eagles beat Chip's Giants in agonizing manner or happy manner, however you look at it.
Depending.
Chip still insisted on writing this, of course. There is a chance that Chip could be a sore loser, which I'm betting for. And since he withheld this from me until moments ago, I'm not sure what I'm in for. Could be a stirring, moving segment on how great Chip is. No, but I will say this. Chip offers something positive during these openers, and we would like to bring a positive approach to our show. To paraphrase the words of a personal hero of mine, Para-X's own Reverend Tim Shaw, which is true, even though I don't call everybody my hero like Chip does. But, however, Chip's glowing positively is a reflection of me. So in Chip's mind, if I'm given a chance to have this segment, this is what I would say. I noticed the other day on Facebook that my great love, Kathy Shabbat, who I've referred to as the best part of my paranormal team, Glory Haunt Hounds, and my life in general, posted something about how moved she was to have seen the magical course her life has taken recently, the people we've met along the way. Sometimes life gives us a moment to step back and realize the good things. I've learned, as we all do, through trial and error, what to take out of our own experiences. I have been fascinated by the paranormal for a long time. I've seen good approaches and not so good ones, and feel strongly about a few things. Given a chance to make my mark on this, here's what I've taken out of it. I am passionate about the role history plays in paranormal investigating. When I see someone working hard to preserve a location, holding on to a property rather than giving it into temptation and building a strip mall instead, I appreciate their sacrifice more than most. To honor those who have lived before us, all they've stood for, and then have the gift of walking through the places they've built, lived in or died, prospered or fell, and pushing for some sort of connection that breaks the conventional boundaries of science. I feel the need to contribute what I can. It's easier to find good historical accounts nowadays, but there's a sense in me that's largely ignored. So I hope I can do something, even something small, to remind people that history is really worth a look. And I hope I can encourage others in our field to put history and good research on the front burner and help those who struggle to maintain a landmark, especially when paranormal experiences are highlighted. I've also become a strong supporter of paranormal unity. if possible. We have had discussions on this show about this, where politics and ego seem to trump togetherness, and that makes little sense to me. It always stands out that all I've learned through the years is that people in our field are some of the most wonderful and interesting people I've encountered in life. We're all searching for the same things, and though we often value different approaches, it's still for the same goal. I like to give people who are curious about investigating a chance to investigate with us, where we can guide them through their curiosity and share valuable experiences. I encourage others to try this, and at the same time contribute to properties fighting to help stay afloat and preserving history. We can educate, give back, and we can do it together. We can find abundance as a collective unit and discover how special each of us truly is. I've mentioned a few times before that it was always a dream of mine to have a radio show, but in my wildest dreams I never thought it would be as great. I am so grateful for our listeners. I'm glad that you're with us, and a real bonus in all this is the quality of our listeners. I enjoy seeing you in the chat room. I appreciate and value your questions, comments, and intelligence. Some of you that I've met in my travels, I'm happy to say, on how you've made me feel, and I'm encouraged by the quality of company we keep having you with us. I am most grateful to see that many people I looked up in this field are becoming personal friends. I can't describe how incredible that is. It says awesome, but that's a chip word. Mm-hmm. Persons from television, from movies, from radio, from websites, from teams that are fast becoming a part of my personal unity, and there is a joy beyond words. I wanted to be on Para X, if on radio at all, because of people like Dave Jones, Marla Brooks, Craig Eugene, Reverend Tim Shaw, and many, many more that I can mention that are now a part of my daily life. And man, this is awesome. I'll use the chip word instead of fantastic, my word. I've also had a great pleasure of announcing last week that I am now officially with Mark Tetlow from Ideal Event Management. Mark represents some of the industry's biggest giants like Jason Hawes, Steve Gonzalez, Dave Tango, John Zaffis, and many others. That represents the company I'm part of now, not to mention Mark's involvement with Parax, which I'm very proud of as well. I do have a lot to be grateful for and thankful to all of you so much for being with us on Keeping the Spirits Alive and Glory Haunt Hounds. The best part of it all is I get to sit next to Chip at least once a week. Perhaps he is a sore loser after all.
I had to get that in there. Very good, John. We love that opening segment.
Wow, I what can I say? That was, yes, that was the one and only John-isms. I almost hope my Eagles lose next time. Anyway, that said, without further ado, we do have waiting very patiently on the line for us Mr. Keith Johnson, who is, of course, renowned demonologist, founder or co-founder of N.E.A.R with his lovely wife, Sandra, author of Paranormal Realities 1 and 2, and has been on numerous TV shows and paranormal radio appearances as well, of course. We want to bring on right now, thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Keith Johnson. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fine. How are you doing tonight?
We are awesome. That is a chip word.
We are most excellent. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight. Thank you for bearing with us as we played out our football bet and me pledging my love to the world.
Yes, we appreciate that. And speaking of demonology, I can kind of lump it into how the Philadelphia Eagles managed to beat the Giants last night.
I'm not
but
sure.
But I won't. I won't say that.
I think that was all that was good in the world that happened with the outcome of that game. That's just me saying.
It really depends on where you come from.
So, Keith, we were talking briefly beforehand, and you are, of course, very, very busy, co-founder of N.E.A.R, the New England Anomalies Research Society, with your wife, Sandra, running that team. And I am actually most of the way through reading Paranormal Realities, and I tell you what, this book, and I can't wait to read the second book, and I'm hoping there's more, because I'm learning a lot from this. It's very entertaining and interesting, and it's very interesting to learn how somebody just started as a teenager like you did and through college and got involved with some amazing cases. I mean, and then continued your career in the paranormal with that start. That said, let's just jump right in. And if you want to just tell the folks out there a little bit about who you are and what you do, that'd be great.
Well, my name is Keith Johnson. I'm a practicing demonologist. I've been involved in the field of paranormal research for quite a while, well over 3.5 decades. Started out as I was a teenager, but of course it wasn't like it is now. There was no internet, and there wasn't all this information just readily available at your fingertips. So I kind of blundered along and felt like I was called to do more than just investigate, but also help people with with the field of demonology, and it so happened that my brother and I happened to meet Ed and Lorraine Warren at a lecture at Rhode Island College that they were doing, and this is back in the 70s, and met them and became lifelong friends and were invited to join our first paranormal group at Rhode Island College, and we joined this group called PIRO, Parapsychology Investigation and Research Organization, and that doesn't mean we're a pyromaniac. That was our first paranormal group, and our first case turned out to be a demonic one. So that's in a nutshell how I started.
Wow.
Yeah, that certainly is one of the questions I had for you. Of all the different areas of research in the paranormal, why demonology? But reading your book, you were certainly brought into some situations early that presented that right up front, and having attended the Warrens' lectures, which I've now done many years later, and Mrs. Warren, still a very interesting lady, very wonderful lady to talk to.
We even saw them mentioned in a movie we saw this weekend, too.
That's true.
Please Talk With Me movie.
We did. And, so that's sort of self-explanatory why that would be pulled towards that. But, that said, that, the demonology, the darker side of the paranormal, it's something that a lot of folks are really kind of skittish about talking about. They kind of try to step away from it. I think it's more or less something that they don't understand, but that's where people like yourself are very valuable, because this is a very I think it's a much more common occurrence than most people think. Would you agree with that this sort of demonic entities happen a lot more often than people even realize?
Yes, I would definitely agree. I'm sure there would be a lot of people that would disagree, but I think it's much more common than people realize. And the reason for that is I think it's on a very deceptive level, and it kind of masquerades as something much nicer and easier to deal with. And that's why people do not realize that it's more common than actually is perceived.
Right. And now when you're doing an investigation and someone calls you in and they're afraid there might be a demonic entity or possession occurrence going on, what are some telltale signs that you use to determine the difference between a demonic entity and just a malevolent spirit?
Mm-hmm. A demonic spirit is going to have very, very an anti-religious approach. It's going to be very, very anti-religious. It's going to be the antithesis of anything that is good. Also, some telltale signs are numerical. It's going to do things in a certain numerical order and a certain pattern. For instance, there'll be things coming in threes, three knockings, lights flashing on and off 3 times in a row.
3 scratches.
There'll also be things going counterclockwise. Things will tend to move counterclockwise, and they'll tend to be opposite. And of course, if I want to put in that if the toilet flushes counterclockwise, that might mean you're in Australia. So
that's true. Wow, I never thought of that.
Right, but if it happens over here, that might be a telltale sign. I don't know, but there are certainly things moving in a counterclockwise direction. People being touched on the left side, little things like that. That in and of themselves may seem insignificant, but when you put them all together, you do get an established pattern. Also, when there is an actual infestation, if it gets to that point, it will usually be one person is targeted. Now, I'm not talking about the kind of things that they start up and then they gradually fade off. I mean, if it's a full-blown attack, one person, the whole family will suffer, of course, but it'll be one person in particular will be targeted, and the spirit is going to work on that person, very much like a brainwashing technique. And the strategy behind that is that the spirit is trying to break down that person's will. And there is a burning intelligence there. It's not like it's something random. This thing is focused, and it wants to overtake that person and really bring that person down till that person has been rendered weak and pliable and totally controllable. That is the modus operandi of a demonic spirit and an infestation.
On that note, what you just mentioned, if there's a specific person targeted, I'm sure I, as well as all our listeners here, would love to know if there is any particular thing that would bring that about. Anything we could do to avoid being targeted, or anything that we are unwillingly doing to attract or target specifically a demonic entity.
Well, there's the obvious. Of course, I'll start off by stating the obvious. There's somebody with emotional problems that has, psychological problems and kind of an imbalance, and that person is very lonely, is looking for something. That person starts to play with a Ouija board or some other divination device, starts opening up themselves, inviting the spirit in intentionally, and giving it more and more control, asking it to manipulate your hands and your fingers to spell things out. I'm giving you some control. I'm giving you some of my motor control to spell out messages. That's an obvious invitation, and especially if it's in a place where spirits are already known to inhabit. There has been some tragedies occurred there, and there has been some spirit activity there. That's an open invitation. It could also be a lot more subtle, and sometimes it's very, very hard to see these things when they start happening. Somebody, it could be. Sometimes it's accidental. Sometimes the person didn't invite these things at all. They just happen to be there. Very rarely is cases where people are targeted for whatever reason. Somebody is specifically, whether there's something about their aura which is like a magnet to these things, some weakness or some attraction where the spirit is going to be attracted to an individual. And, I'd like to say, while the occurrences of demonic activity are not that rare, what I'm talking about is extremely rare, that it's going to get to that point. Okay. It'll be kind of lurking on the outskirts, but the situations where somebody walks into a home and demonic spirits are there and they're out to take over, that to get to that point is extremely rare. And an infestation, people usually do not just walk into an infestation. It's usually a very long, drawn-out, complicated process where the demonic spirit is using a strategy where it's not going to just jump into this. It's going to wait till there's an opening and look for that opening, look for those weaknesses, look for the invitations. So to get to that point is extremely rare. Right. And there's situations that Sandra and I have dealt with where it is to that extreme. Rare as that is, it is to that extreme. Sometimes it's just people being at the wrong place at the wrong time. And sometimes they're prepped for this. They may not realize this, but they are prepped for this, to be in that situation. And our first demonic case that we worked on, that was a perfect prime example of that, where the family, I believe, was prepped for this. They were set up, so to speak, and they were truly, truly victimized.
Right, and that said, one of the interesting things that I noticed that caught my eye, I'm really enjoying your Paranormal Realities book series. I think it's excellent.
Thank you.
I highly recommend anybody out there who has an interest in the paranormal, not just the demonology side, but just the paranormal in general. It's a great series that continues through Keith Johnson's career, and Keith and Sandra, and how they got started, and goes through different cases that they've done and things that they've done. We'll talk a little bit later about how people can get copies of these books. But
it's good stuff.
In reading Paranormal Realities, one thing that caught my eye, or my ear, or what have you, my eye, I guess it would be, is that because this has happened to me a couple times. You mentioned in there that touching at the nape of the neck. You say that's often a way that a demonic entity can sometimes target or try to enter or attach to a person. I've had this feeling, or the tingling, or the touching in the back of the nape of the neck area, and I say, "Oh, I've been touched," but I never really knew or even thought about the possibility, of that being a demonic type of thing. So, what is the theory, or what are the thoughts behind touching at the nape of the neck? And then I have a second part to this question about the only possible demonic case that I think I may have been involved in, and what your opinion is on that. But I'll get to that. But as far as the nape of the neck goes, what is the theory behind that? Because that is something that I have had occur to me on a few occasions.
Okay, rather mysterious, but there is there is a nerve center at the base of the brain, and it's believed that the demonic uses this as a possible entry point, or at least is searching out a weakness there. So when you feel that tingling, it's kind of trying to grab hold of you, and that's why you feel that tingling there, and that's why you have a sense there. It's kind of like an alarm system, a warning system. When you feel that tingling in the back of your neck, that means that something could be trying to manipulate you there, or at least look for weaknesses. If of course, at the very worst, it's actually trying to get inside you. But again, that's very rare. Usually, what it's doing is just feeling you out. It's a double purpose. It's feeling you out, but it's also a warning that something's here. In other words, stay away because you're at the danger point now.
No,
so it's just yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I would just sort of on the same point as far as entry points are concerned. I was at one investigation. A lot of folks that I knew that were sensitive were telling me to stay away from this place. It wasn't a good place to go. And things happened afterwards that kind of scared me a little bit that hadn't happened in prior investigations. And I've been investigating myself for 17, 18 years, and I hadn't had this happen before. I was in one room, and I felt what I would call to be an electrical charge, or a zap, as a lot of people call it, in my lower leg. And after that, things changed dramatically for me for a while. Have you heard of instances of this sort of zap, this electrical energy being, and perhaps a malevolent or a demonic type of entry, or I'm not sure the word I'm looking for, but occurrence?
Yes, I have. I have heard of people being zapped. It is very much of an electrical charge. Sandra and I have experienced that, not zapped, so to speak, but we have felt like energy was being drawn right from us. It's like it draws us right from within you. It's like from the inside out. And I have heard of people being zapped too, people being so shocked, so to speak, and really, really afflicted, almost as if something shot right at them. And some people are jolted right backwards, and can be a truly uncomfortable and sometimes terrifying experience when this happens. And it's not common that you'll see that much energy going on during a paranormal situation, but I have seen furniture move with somebody sitting in it. So these things do have a lot of power, and yes, they can zap you, can throw the proverbial energy bolt right at you, and you will feel it.
And one thing I noticed after that happened to me is a lot of changes. After the investigation was over, we did see that night a rather heavy box move, probably 3 feet by itself, which is not a good thing. And then later on, after that happened, there were some things that I haven't talked about a lot, but I can mention that I was coming to bed one evening, and suddenly, my eyes had already adjusted to the light, and it was dark in the room, but there was a black presence in front of me, blocking myself from seeing anything within a few feet in front of me. Right in front of me was complete blackness, and I could look to the right and see a normal side of the bed and what kind of thing, but I could not even see in front of me to the bedstand. That combined with this incredible obsession to just stare and think about and wanting to go back to this location over and over again. I would sometimes pull my car over and stare at it. I would think about what can I do to get more people to go there. I need to bring more people there. I need to get there. It sort of very much felt like what I would consider and what I've read from a lot of folks as an attachment. Does that sound like a similar thing that would classify as an attachment kind of situation?
Yes, it does. A lot of times when you have an attachment, that doesn't mean it's going to stay with you. It doesn't mean it's permanently attached. It depends on the situation. Some people will carry an attachment. It will be kind of almost like a permanent fixture, but usually it lasts for a short time, and then it will kind of dissipate or go away. It's just kind of tagging along for a while, and it's seeing how you're going to react and how much of a hold it can. For example, I was on a case. It was presumably a demonic case some years ago, and Andrew Graham was with me, and of course his wife said, "I don't mind if you do this, just don't bring anything home with you." Well, lo and behold, he came home, and they felt something. It was about for 3 days. They felt 3 nights rather. They felt a seemed very much like a cat jumping on the end of their bed. They turned the light on, and of course nothing was there. And his wife, Andrew's wife, Kathleen, said, "You brought something home with you, didn't you?" He said, "Well, I didn't mean to. It just kind of followed me."
I can't get away with that with my wife, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, right. Yep, I didn't do it. Take the lights on. But, it stayed there for about 3 nights, and then it stopped. But,
Wow.
Yeah, an attachment, sometimes he'll bring these little critters home, if you want to call them that. But usually it's, I've known dangerous attachments. For example, there was, and this is a story in the Paranormal Reality series where a woman went to an abandoned asylum with her family in Massachusetts, and she felt there was a spirit of a child there. She felt this overwhelming sorrow, felt such sympathy for this spirit, which she took to be a child, and she said, really gave it permission, come to me and I will try to help you. And of course it took her at her word and followed her home, and then that really turned her life upside down, and that's when she contacted us because she just couldn't deal with it anymore. So she inadvertently invited this, and sometimes these spirits will do that. They'll play on your sympathy. They'll do anything to get a foothold so that you will unwittingly give them permission, and that's exactly what happened in that case.
Well, I'm really glad that didn't happen to me. What I basically did, Keith, is just I stood firm ground, and we were moving, and I just said, "Look, I'm moving. You're not welcome to come with me. I'm not going back to where you want me to go. So just leave me alone." And we moved, and I've been clear since. There's been no obsession with this place. There's been no desire, no dark spots, no weird occurrences. So I think whatever was got the point that I wasn't welcome. I mean, that I wasn't going to give in to it, and it kind of went away.
Yeah.
So that lucky for me that happened, and some people are not so lucky, I guess. But if you have any questions for Mr. Keith Johnson, the number to call in is 518-300-3619. And of course, we're also taking questions in the chat room if you have any there. That said, a partner here, Chip, has a question.
Yes, I do. Largely on what you were talking about, I was wondering, because I've been encouraging friends of mine in the industry to try an imagery where you take in the white light of love and divine protection, surround yourself with this before going into investigations. In your opinion, would that hold any bearing?
I think that can help a lot if you go in with a very positive attitude, where you do feel yourself surrounded by white light, and you're going in for altruistic purposes. You're not going there to try to provoke and unnecessarily. I think going in with a positive mindset does a lot to have you protected, and the fact that you don't want something to follow you, and you make that plain, usually is very, very effective, and most of the time that will be sufficient. Of course, Sandra and I, before we go into a situation, we always like to read Ephesians chapter 6 from the Bible and the New Testament, Ephesians chapter 6, because that speaks about the armor of God, putting on the armor of God. Talks about the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, and doing this visualization is very positive. It helps in 2 ways. One, it is a very positive mindset, so you're really psyching yourself out with this positive mindset. You really feel like you're going in there with this kind of protection, and that will emotionally and psychologically fortify you. 2, if it is an actual demonic spirit, they're going to sense this as well, that you are protected and you are covered by this protection. So it can help a lot to go in prayerfully, feel yourself wearing the armor of God or surrounded by white light, because that does a lot for your own protection. We found that to be extremely, very, very helpful and protective.
We do have a chat room question with regard to illnesses, and we've seen some of the shows. I think the person in the chat room had Ryan from Paranormal State in mind, who's been pretty ill recently for a while. Do you think that all these investigations, especially him who has dealings with some demonic entities more often than most, at least on shows, do you think that his illness or some of the illnesses that we've seen prominent in the paranormal community have any bearing with demonologists or demonic entity?
It's hard to say because you have to take that on an individual basis. Surely there are instances, and this is recorded in Scripture, where demonic entities have caused illnesses. Sometimes they don't cause the illness, but they worsen it. I think illnesses, such as that, they strike the good and the bad, and as it says in Scripture, the rain falls on the just and the unjust. But I know we just lost our good friend Andrew Calder, Reverend Andrew Calder, as well. He had been sick for some time, and usually this type of activity does not bring on sickness, but if you become too involved without taking a break from it, it's just, it can weigh on your health and your psychological aspects, so it can make you susceptible to illness, and so I don't think it causes a lot of these illnesses, but it does manipulate a lot, and it makes things very, very difficult in your life, especially if you're not guarded. So it's hard to say how much it causes these illnesses. I think most of the time it does not, but there are rare instances where if somebody has an illness, it can be, these things will pick on your weaknesses. They will do all they can to pick on your weaknesses. And, our prayers are with Ryan, and God bless him for all he's going through and all he's done. He's a very dear friend of ours, and we're very sorry to have lost Andrew Calder as well.
Yes.
But, so it can, I think it can interfere with our health and our general aspect if we don't ground ourselves prayerfully.
Absolutely, and that brings me to a point, too, and of course, yes, prayers with Ryan and anyone else that may be afflicted out there, for sure, in our community and anywhere, for that matter. But you've had the pleasure of appearing on, as being a former member of TAPS, appearing on the first couple seasons of Ghost Hunters and also on Paranormal State. So you've had worked with a lot of the folks that people know from the TV shows out there now and in your past. But I want to bring you back even farther than that, back to a case that I found very fascinating that you worked on, and that's the case of the boy Lucas.
Yes.
I found that case to be very fascinating, and I found, and I am sure you'll agree, the approach that you guys took to performing this exorcism or assisting in the exorcism to be quite a surprise when you found out that it was not actually going to be a Catholic exorcism, and it was actually going to be a exorcism in the religion of Santeria. So that must have been quite a shock to you when you found that out. But yet, some of the occurrences that happened during this time were just amazing. And this, again, is in Paranormal Realities 1 book. You tell the story of this. But if you don't mind telling us a little bit about that case and, how that came to be.
Well, sure. Excuse me a second. I got a call coming in. I'm just going to get rid of that. I'll be right back.
Sure, no problem.
Okay. Well,
that may be.
Okay, we're all set.
All right, great.
Okay. Sorry about that.
It wasn't a demon, right?
No,
okay,
it wasn't.
Good. All right, we're safe. Good.
Actually, it was a team member, so that's just the opposite.
Good.
Yes, yeah. Yes, the case with the boy, Lucas, that was a... hold on a second.
It's just not going away. Maybe it is demonic. Just to let the people in the chat room know, we'll get to you and your questions.
All right, get that. All right, okay, thanks. Okay, Lucas was, he was a 14-year-old boy at the time. His family was, they were practitioners of Santeria. He was, began afflicted when he was in early adolescence. He began going into states of actual demonic possession. My brother happened to be there late at night with the family. All of a sudden, he heard Lucas screaming. Lucas came into...
that must be Lucas.
Lucas all of a sudden came into the room spinning like a top. It seems impossible for a person to do that, just spinning, rotating like a top, bouncing off the walls and jumping on the bed and screaming and laughing maniacally. He's normally a very placid young boy. He was, a very nice person, not prone to fits or tantrums or anything, but this would just take over him. So the family asked if we would, because Carl and I were into dealing with spiritual matters, they asked if we'd assist in an exorcism for him. And we were told it was a Catholic exorcism and a priest was going to be there. Well, of course, it did turn out to be Santeria, meaning the way of the saints. And it was actually a priestess. It was actually his aunt that was going to be conducting the ceremony. And, of course, I pictured the formalized Catholic ritual that we'd be assisting in, where they'd have a Catholic priest reading from the Ritual Romanum, and everything was going to be very, very controlled, and we'd be there to jump in and assist if necessary. Well, it turned out to be total pandemonium. But there was one point where I interviewed Lucas, and I asked him, first of all, he was surprised that I dared to be in a room alone with him. But I did interview him. He said that when he was very young, probably about 6 years old, he was walking through a cemetery with his family, and he found a glove. Naturally, being curious, the child just picked it up, and he felt something grab onto him. Now, I don't know where that glove came from. It could have been used in profane worship, but whatever happened, he felt something that had attached itself to him, and he began to be spiritually oppressed. And when he became a young adolescent, started taking over him completely to the point where he would black out, and he would have no memory of this at all, these bizarre episodes that he was going through. Once he came out of it, he'd feel embarrassed. What happened? What am I doing here? And so he had no memory of it at all. And he came, he came to us and told us this, and his family asked Carl and I to assist. So once we were there, it was very, very bizarre, because he went under possession. We were sitting in a semicircle, and he was sitting in the middle in a fold-out chair, and suddenly he just, in the middle of the prayers, you could feel the aura. I call it the aura. It's a 3 to 5 second warning that something's going to happen, where all of a sudden you feel the room become electrically charged, you feel drained, and it's about 3 seconds later, all of a sudden his eyes just became wild, and he slid off the chair, and he began screaming and swaying like a cobra, moving into these impossible positions. It really looked like he was being picked up by something and then just dashed repeatedly to the ground. And we wound up holding him down, my brother and a friend of ours, his uncle, and myself. All three of us were holding him down. He was a frail boy, but it took all of our strength to just hold him down. And I tell you, this was incredibly exhausting. When we felt that aura, my brother was sitting in a heavy family chair. Suddenly, suddenly he began sliding backwards in the chair, and you felt this rumbling. It was like an earthquake. You felt this tremor going through the floor, and that's what started it all. So it was a very, very exhausting situation, and it's very, very draining, extremely draining, physically and emotionally exhausting. And something really took over him that was not him. You could tell it was not him. His eyes were not his eyes. He was extremely vacant. And then his aunt, at one point, went under possession herself. She was kind of a stout woman, short, stout woman. Suddenly she went into a grand mal seizure, smashed into the table. When she sat up, it wasn't her face anymore. She just, there's something I describe when somebody's under possession. I've seen both. I call it the comedy or the tragedy mask, and she looked just like a comedy mask. And just this vacant smile on her face, and began telling everybody she was going to read their fortune and everything. And of course, that took our minds off Lucas and everything like that. So it was a very, very exhausting situation, and finally he did come out of it, but I don't think he was really cured. I don't at all. Yeah. My brother seems to think he was, but I didn't think so. It just he never really came back to total himself. I know it.
I got the impression from reading the story that you felt that way, Keith, when I read your sentiments. I mean, yours mentions, they pretty much were saying, okay, he's cured, and you were like, well, shouldn't we bring in a Catholic priest, just to be sure, and then there was mentions about every time he would drive by a particular church, he would go into this convulsion again, and they didn't seem alarmed by that, so very disconcerting, I'm sure, to yourself, and to the reader. I agree with you that perhaps he wasn't. But you said unfortunately through the years you lost contact with him, so there's no way of really knowing that I believe, correct?
Right, exactly. And I don't think he was totally. My personal opinion, he was. I don't think he was totally delivered from this spirit presence, and I don't know if he still goes on states of possession. He was at a very vulnerable time in his life. He was early adolescence, and I still, if my opinion matters at all, I think he's probably still has this attachment, and I don't know in what way it affects him, but sometimes these things just stay with us unless we are totally delivered from them, and I don't think he was totally delivered.
Well, let's hope that wherever he is these days, he did find someone else to help him, wherever he may be, and that's all we can hope for. And there is another question from our chat room that Chip's going to ask.
There's a few. I do have a couple regarding Ouija boards again, including burning Ouija boards, but since you were just talking about that particular case, I guess we can lead in to this question from our chat room. In your opinion, what exactly is a demon as opposed to your average haunt, or what makes maybe an angry spirit different from a demonic one, in your opinion?
Okay, a demon is something that has never been human. It has never been in human form as we know it. It's not something that is of the human race. It's totally separate. It's, of course, the main demon connotates a spirit. It's, of course, an ancient Greek word, daemon, which refers to any kind of spirit that is a wise spirit. It's out of the human realm. But, of course, in the past couple of centuries, it's really come to mean an evil spirit. But basically, a demon is not a human spirit. It can masquerade as one, and quite often does, but it's never been part of humanity as we know it. And that is the main difference between simply a malevolent, hostile spirit and something that is truly inhuman, which we refer to as a demonic entity.
I wanted to mention that you have a couple of cool appearances coming up. You and Sandra are going to be at the first annual Northeast Paranormal Expo coming up this weekend, I believe, right? October 6th and 7th.
Yes, indeed.
That's in New Hampshire? Is it Portsmouth, New Hampshire?
Yes, Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
Nice.
Yep. Very
Organized
nice.
by good friend Andrew Graham, and in Paranormal Realities, of course, Andrew was mentioned because he was one of the original TAPS members as well, as
right,
along with us, and that's how we met. And I think people who are fans are really interested in the history of the Atlantic Paranormal Society will find some of the chapters interesting because you'll see members who were not necessarily on the TV show, but played an integral part for years in the Atlantic Paranormal Society before the TV show Ghost Hunters. And so there was quite a history with TAPS before the TV series, and I think people will find that interesting who really do want to know about these characters and what happened with TAPS prior to Ghost Hunters.
I agree. It's definitely something that you don't hear about every day, and it's something that's an interesting thing. I know you've remained friends with a lot of the folks in TAPS. I saw Jason on your show, the Ghost Star N.E.A.R TV show, which I like quite a bit. That's viewable on your website and YouTube, as well as a local channel down there in Rhode Island. Is that correct?
Broadcast
show.
Yep.
Excellent.
Also through search engines.
And through search
Google and Yahoo search engines on the YouTube.
It's definitely out there, the YouTube files to watch. I watched several of those, so I know that you remained friends with those guys, and that's excellent. And also, I see you're going to be at the Rhode Island Comic Con on November 3rd and 4th with your wife as well.
Oh, yes. Sandra and I are both very much looking forward to that, and that's one thing about these conventions. They're very invaluable in that you can network and meet other people and other investigators. And these, when I was starting out in the 70s, you really didn't have these things. What you had locally was usually a science fair once in a while. You'd have a science fair and, of course, the Star Trek conventions, but you really didn't have the paranormal conventions now. The closest to that was the science fairs, but where they would have psychic readings as well. These paranormal conventions are where we really get to meet each other and know each other and meet and greet the public. So those two ones you just mentioned, we're very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, those are going to be great. And if people want more information on what you're up to, and you and your wife Sandra are up to, if you can give them the website address for N.E.A.R., how they can find out what your events are going to be. Also, I know from your site they can order autographed copies of Paranormal Realities 1 and 2.
Yes, indeed.
What is the website address for folks who want to find out more what's going on with Keith Johnson and Sandra?
That's N.E.A.R.paranormal.com, www.nearparanormal.com. Very easy to navigate, very accessible. And I refer, Sandra will answer to either Sandra or Sandra. She's called both. So
I will never call her late for dinner, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. But nearparanormal.com, very easy to find us there, and you can visit our website. And as you mentioned, our shows are on the site. If you go to Near Paranormal, you can go to our show archives and see episodes of Ghost on Air, or go to YouTube as well. So people watch them all over the world, so we're very grateful for that.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on our show this week. We will be having a paranormal convention next year, so maybe I'll be in touch with you about that. I'd love to have you out there for that if possible. But and we also would love to have you on again because you've been a fascinating guest.
We really would love to have you on again, especially we had so many questions for you in so little time. So we sure hope you'd join us again.
So thank you so much.
You're great guys, and I really enjoyed talking to you. So we will have to do it again. It's like a family gathering,
Absolutely.
It feels like it. It sure does.
And tell your wife we missed her very much, and we will try to work out a time sometime when she can be on because she's very lovely and love to have her on with you.
Oh, thank you. She's been through a hectic weekend and everything. We've been through so much, and looking at her, she still looks so beautiful. So, no matter how tired she is.
You are a very lucky man, Mr. Keith Johnson.
Yes, you are.
Thank you very much.
Plus, you can call her Sandra and Sandra.
That's right.
She likes tomato soup and tomato soup. It's a beautiful thing.
So thanks so much for joining us this week.
Having two women in the same room.
And we will talk to you again very, very soon.
Yes, Keith, thank you so much.
Well,
thanks a lot.
For having me on.
Have a great night.
You too. God
Bye-bye.
bless.
That was Mr. Keith Johnson. That was awesome. Loved having him on.
Very
what a great guy.
And again, sorry we couldn't get to all the questions.
That's
true.
There were
so many of them.
We're going to take a really, really short break, but when we come back, we're going to have our Jaunt of the Week with Courtney Maroc.
And the break's an awesome break, too.
Stay tuned.
Yes.
Hi, this is PJ Souls, and you're totally listening to Keeping the Spirits Alive with John and Chip on the Para X Radio Network.
Whether you're listening at home, at work, or anywhere, thanks for making Para X part of your day. Your source for everything paranormal. Para X.
Join us as we present Ghosts and Legends of Saratoga County and Beyond. This is a fundraising event for benefit of the Saratoga County Historical Society. On Saturday, October 20th, from 6:30 to 9 p.m. at the Brookside Museum in Ballston Spa, New York, featuring the Reverend Tim Shaw of Para X's The Black Cat Lounge, presenting chilling tales of New York State haunts. Included also is a presentation by Glory Haunt Hounds of the Ghosts and Legends of Saratoga County. We are also featuring spooky storytelling by horror author Miranda Derfler. All of this for just $10. Get your tickets now at www.gloryhaunthounds.com. Again, Saturday, October 20th from 6:30 to 9 p.m. The Ghosts and Legends of Saratoga County and Beyond, featuring the Reverend Tim Shaw and John and Chip from Keeping the Spirits Alive. Get your tickets now, just $10 at www.gloryhaunthounds.com. And with that, and my my funky, rocky horror voice, I'm welcoming you back to Keeping the Spirits Alive. Hey, we have Courtney on the line with Haunt Johns. How's it going, Courtney?
Hey, good, guys. How about for you?
Oh, we're great.
We're doing awesome, and the show can only get better after my commercial, that's for sure.
He's doing his Vincent Price thing there on the commercial.
It's kind of more Rocky
Saratoga
Horror than
County.
Vincent Price. I don't want to insult Mr. Price. He'd be rolling over in his grave if he thought I was saying
No,
that.
but I want to hear John on a Thriller remix sometime.
I would sound more like Michael Jackson than Vincent Price. I'm sure of it. So, hey, Court, you have an awesome haunt, John, for us this week, and I believe it involves, if I remember your post correctly, some place you've been recently. Is that correct?
Yes, it does. I thought this week I would talk about the Golden Gate Bridge and the ghosts that are there. When we went to San Francisco, I didn't really I wanted to see the Golden Gate Bridge, but we ended up walking across it, and I knew it was haunted, and I knew it was a popular place for people to commit suicide, unfortunately. But I didn't realize how popular it is. I guess it's the #1 place in the world for people to commit suicide.
Wow.
So
Again, we have Courtney bringing the cheer, spreading the cheer.
Yeah, next time I get depressed, I know where to go.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. What, to call Courtney or to Golden Gate Bridge?
Golden Gate
Oh,
Bridge.
okay.
yeah, this is really morbid, isn't it? However, it gets a little bit better.
Okay, go on.
I figured because there was so many suicides that, there'd be a lot of ghost stories about people seeing phantom jumpers or, something along that nature. Mm-hmm. But there's not a lot of ghost stories along those lines. Some people claim that they hear screams from the bridge, but that could be seagulls in the fog. I mean, there's a lot of things that could be explained. But the really neat ghost story I found involves a ghost ship that went down in that area in 1853 called, I think it's the SS Tennessee, something Tennessee. I always get those things before ships messed up. Mm-hmm. But
yeah, I do that too. I don't sail anymore just because of that. But yeah,
that wouldn't have anything. So silly. But there's people that have claimed to see the Tennessee, I won't call it all its big name, drift by. And there was a ship, I think USS Kennison, maybe? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kennison, that saw in 1942, there were soldiers on that vessel that saw the Tennessee pass them and then disappear into the fog. So I thought that was kind of an interesting ghost story involving.
I like stories like that. Sailors seeing boats from long ago. It's very cool stuff.
You didn't happen to run into any butt pinching ghosts while you were out there, did you?
It's
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask.
It's a topic that keeps coming up on this show. Don't ask me
I had
why.
to ask.
It's usually in Poughkeepsie, New York. They have butt-pinching ghosts down there.
Well, that's good to know. I'll have to watch out for that if I get to Poughkeepsie.
Yeah.
Well, we did see the, not butt-pinching, but there was a skeleton with an odd pose next with you in the picture. I saw that. Was that out the Golden Gate Bridge, too?
No, that was after the Golden Gate Bridge. He was a little grabby, wasn't he?
He was a little grabby, yeah. I was going to say, I didn't want to say what exactly, but,
Good smile, I will have to say.
Absolutely. My theory on the Golden Gate Bridge...
On you, not the skeleton.
I'll joking aside, my Golden Gate Bridge theory is that probably people are being pinched by the butt-pinching ghost and forced to jump off the bridge.
Yes.
That's where I'm going.
It just makes them jump so high they fall right over.
Right.
Either that or they have to host a show with Chip every week. One or the other.
Oh, no.
That can be funny, too, hopefully. As John's getting serious here.
That was me being serious.
That was John being serious, yeah.
No.
It happened.
But another thing that was interesting when we went over were the suicide crisis counseling phones that were on the bridge that I wasn't expecting to be there. So that I knew about the suicide thing, but I didn't really think. And there was an accident, involving the building of the bridge where 10 people were killed all at once, 10 workers. But they talk about screams it could be from that, it could be from people. I don't know if people scream when they go. But I mean, it is kind of a depressing, morbid topic.
Or if they do scream and nobody's around to hear it, does it make a sound?
still hear it. Exactly. I don't know. So it was kind of an interesting education that I wasn't expecting, I guess.
When you were out,
Yeah, that's cool.
when you were out there, did you get a chance to go over to Alcatraz?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh,
You
now
did,
that
really?
would be really. That would be. That's
We
like
are
on
so
my.
jealous.
Yeah, that's on my bucket list of
It's
places
on
to go over
John's
and
bucket
investigate.
list.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you just do? Did you do the ghost tour over there?
We didn't get to do the ghost tour. We just got to do the cell block tour,
Okay.
an audio tour. So that's gonna be probably for next week my topic.
You can't give that
okay.
away.
Well, it's a tease, you know. It brings us back in 2 weeks. From
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. Not only is Courtney bringing the silly out in us, which is a great thing, but she's providing a tease for her next segment. So that's cool.
Well, I just had to lighten it up a little. From demonology to jumping off bridges, I figured half of our audience is standing in line. It's like
we
I feel
are
like
overcompensating.
the movie Airplane.
A
Robert
3-hour
Hayes,
tour. Somebody has to.
Robert Hayes telling the story in an airplane. Everybody's standing in line, ready to off themselves from listening to his love story. I didn't want to go down that road, so I figured I'd lighten it up a little
And
bit.
he did. That's that electrical charge that went up his leg.
But we digress. But anyway, no, the Golden Gate Bridge is a really cool tale.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is.
so
It's our jealousy coming out.
What are some of the claims besides? I mean, you said screams, and have people actually seen any apparitions on the ghost that you've heard
No,
of?
that's what was interesting. I really I keep searching and searching for that, and I cannot find any claims of apparitions, which kind of surprises me. But then I was thinking from your perspective, like, how would you go about researching or, investigating a bridge like that, to...
There'd be a lot of noise. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and guess that if Chip or I called, they'd close the bridge for us. All right.
Yeah,
Let's not underestimate the power
that
of
would
John
be-
Tobin and Chip Reichenthal.
that
here.
would be my guess too. Yes, exactly. Especially because I'm a published author now, thanks to hauntjaunts.net.
There you go.
And you, I appreciate you publishing my ghost story. That was
Oh,
very
it
cool,
was
by the way.
excellent. That got a lot of comments, because it was so good.
Well, thank you. That's just me accessing from different computers. But
amazing.
thank you.
It's amazing. It's amazing what Chip can get from ReadersDigest.com.
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding.
And like $20. Yeah, it's
gosh.
but no. Seriously, not John seriously, but Chip seriously. That was very moving for me, and I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you for submitting it.
And there's still room for submissions on hauntjaunts.net.
Yes,
There
there
is.
is.
Yeah,
For the
let
Friday,
folks know
ghost story, if
out
anybody
there.
has a ghost story.
Absolutely. If they have a good ghost story, how can they send that to you?
They just click on the Your True Ghost Stories page, and there's a form there. They can just fill it in and shoot me their ghost story. Lickety cut, just like that.
Does it have to be a real ghost story, or can they make a ghost story? Is there...
A real ghost story.
Okay, so that's what a
Real
lot of
ghost
people can make up a ghost story. And
Oh, yes.
and I'm not so good at it either. I'm trying to put together some ghost stories for our event coming up at the Brookside Museum on October 20th.
We got some cool stuff. Yeah, the spirit of Benjamin Franklin.
We've got some
appearing
cool,
with the mineral spring water and all sorts of good stuff.
I'm writing a story on the Battle of Saratoga, and the ghosts that have been seen there. And I'm not a writer. I'm a lover, not a writer. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But thank God we have the Reverend Tim Shaw coming to that event because, boy, I don't know.
Somebody's got to keep us serious.
Someone's got to keep it going. Well, someone's got to keep the people listening, too.
That's true. We did see a real ghost story in movie form over the weekend, which was really awesome.
We did, Courtney. I wanted to tell you about this, too, actually.
Oh, yes.
There's a movie out called Please Talk With Me.
It's coming up. It's good. They're screening it next Saturday in Newburgh, New York. If you just happen to be there, I'll join you, in fact, because it's very cool. This gentleman, Chris DeCesare, had a haunting in 1985 at SUNY Geneseo. It was real. It happened to him at a time where there was really nobody to turn to, and how it was directed and acted and produced and everything else is just really the best movie I've seen.
Courtney, you would love this, and I will send you some details on it so you could let folks know when the next screenings are going to be. Anybody interested in the paranormal or just a good ghost story, and more or less a human story, should see this movie, and I know you would like it. So
yeah, you would love it. It's awesome, and we'll see if we can keep updates for you on hauntjaunts.net.
That said, thank you very much for your story on the Golden Gate Bridge and putting up with us this week.
Yes.
We'll see you the week after next with some more cool haunt jaunts.
Oh, great. Thanks,
And
guys,
you
and
can
thanks
see-
for the movie tip.
Absolutely,
Okay.
you can see.
Oh, it's
all
worth it, definitely.
You can see all of Courtney's information, her haunt jaunts, her weekly travel blogs, and paranormal events, as well as ghost stories on hauntjaunts.net. Thanks, Courtney, and you have a great night.
Thanks, you guys too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Oh, we will.
We are going to send you out tonight with a little bit of a song called A Devil for Me by the Blackfield Brides, who my son likes quite a bit.
And Shadows
Not
Radio
Devils.
coming up next.
Shadows is coming up right after us, followed by the great Eric B.
Great
and
night
Dark
to be
Sun
with us
Rising.
on Pair X.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us again.
On Keeping
The Spirits Alive.